What's going on, gang? Welcome back to my channel, and on this video we're going to be talking about the common saying that I'm hearing all the time: I'm not eating meat because I'm woke and want to save the planet. We're seeing that agenda quite a lot in the journalism of today. Now first, let's talk about what everyone else is talking about, why Bill Gates is suddenly owning so much farmland. Right here in this article it says, big spender, Farmer Bill is now the biggest owner of agricultural land in the U.S., buys up to over 240,000 acres across 19 states. It says 18, but really it's 19 states. And it is absolutely alarming. Now, we have a lot going on in the agricultural industry, as I spoke about in many of my previous videos. Now, reading further down this article, it also says that he has bought some acres for smart cities, which we've talked about many times on this channel, and it also ties in with how the transportation is changing, the renewable resources. I've discussed all on this channel, and I will continue to keep updating you guys. Now, what's interesting here is that I've mentioned in several articles the CEO of Impossible Foods, as well as other supporters such as Bill Gates, wants to take over and end animal agriculture by 2035. I've mentioned this in several videos, and we can see Bill Gates here is an absolutely big supporter in this. In this article alone, we see that Bill Gates says rich nations should shift entirely to synthetic beef. Also, a giant supporter and advocate for CRISPR gene editing technologies, which we've also discussed on this channel. The stock is ever increasing in CRISPR, and it is formulating so many things. Over here in this article, we see that Bill Gates invested $40 million into creating a super cow in the name of sustainability. Granted, this was a few years back, but we can see that CRISPR and gene editing technology obviously is nothing new and ever increasing. We are seeing so much journalism and bias on food tech. We're seeing Biden as the food tech president. I've done many videos on this. And now we're seeing the agenda steer towards deforestation and the green outlook. We can't help contribute to the deforestation of Brazil. Therefore, we have been refusing soybeans, refusing meat, and here we see the Mighty Earth campaign on meat, where it says the meat sold in restaurants and supermarkets around the world is driving destruction of the forests and savannas of South America. The meat industry grabs the traditional lands of indigenous communities to turn them into soybean monocultures to provide animal feed. Mighty Earth is organizing around the world to show supermarkets and restaurants that people don't want to eat meat that's linked to destruction of native ecosystems or abuse of indigenous people. The channel development onto previously cleared land instead. This green campaign, this deforestation campaign, is taking a complete bias, a complete scapegoat umbrella term, just as all these other terms have. I talk about those terms all the time. You want to watch out for peace, green, sustainable, weather change. I don't want to say the actual word. All these, terms are something that you need to be aware of. Now, in the name of not contributing to the deforestation in Brazil, we are refusing to import soybeans, which, again, I've mentioned that we are on a massive soybean shortage, which creates a massive feed shortage for animals, for farm animals, among many other things. And now we see these big companies refusing, like Nestle's, Walmart. We're seeing all these companies refusing to sell and to partake in their products because of deforestation. So we're seeing in these articles here, which are plastered all over the place, food giants seek ban on soy from deforested Brazil region. By the way, Brazil is importing soybeans, first of all. And that doesn't make sense because Brazil is our biggest soy exporter and they are importing soybeans. This is a very bad thing. If you guys didn't know that, I did a whole video on that. How deforestation and cattle raising threaten biodiversity in Brazil. Right here we see the companies Nestle, Unilever, McDonald's, Walmart, Tesco, and other consumer goods companies demanded in a letter that the trades refuse to trade soy from deforested regions as well as now cattle and beef and meat. We're seeing Brazil meat packers bought cattle linked to deforestation. How dare we? Okay. Now, this all has to do with this carbon tax, this zero carbon world. And we've seen this in a tabletop exercise that we dug into on this channel called the food chain reaction game. And this took place in 2015. If you guys are familiar with Event 201, which many agree was a simulation for this pandemic we are facing, we've also seen other tabletop events that are playing out in today's world. Food chain reaction game ended in a carbon tax, and we're seeing all those things even with what happened in Texas. So I just want to make it clear that the renewable energy agenda is something that is really, they're grabbing the horse by the reins and they are going full throttle on this. Bill Gates as well is very much an advocate and wants synthetic beef only. This goes back to the zero carbon world and the ending meats completely by 2035, turning everything plant-based. We're even seeing this in dog food, which I mentioned in another video, that they're going strictly to insect proteins to feed your dog. And when you have a zero carbon world and a carbon tax coupled with the defunding and all the problems the farmers are going through right now, it's impossible to have zero carbon and then have farm animals. They can't coexist together. It's like mixing fire and gasoline. They just can't mix. They don't cohabit together. Now, speaking of the carbon tax and the zero carbon world and everything going on with that, we're seeing, which I'll touch into more in a separate video because this is more about food, whereas this is about transportation and what's going on. And we see like Agenda 2050 now, Agenda 2030, Agenda 21, all these different types of agendas. The electric and renewable only in the name of the green wokeness campaign. And we're seeing how transportation is also changing. As you guys know on my Patreon, I frequently update you on stocks that I have partaked in and invested in, and a lot of them in 2020, SPACs was doing amazing electric cars, trying to make all the cars electrical. And I want to read this article that I found archived in the World Economic Forum's website, written in 2016, about the transportation, which I've already discussed in a previous video. But just to remind you guys, it says here, transportation dropped dramatically in price. This is speaking about future times. It made no sense for us to own cars anymore because we could call a driverless vehicle or a flying car for longer journeys within minutes. We started transporting ourselves in a much more organized and coordinating way when public transportation became easier, quicker, and more convenient than the car. Now I can hardly believe that we accepted congestion and traffic jams, not to mention the air pollution, oh my gosh, from combustion engines. What were we thinking? And this was an article written as if the future has already surpassed, and this was in 2016. So I just wanted to update you guys on what is going on within our farming industry, our big ag industry, and how they are centralizing everything to an even bigger control and kind of what's going on with that. I will be doing a further video on the transportation agenda, if you will, and kind of what's going on with that as well in terms of the cities as well as the transportation links. So with that being said, if you haven't seen both of my playlists, the farming playlist as well as the Great Reset playlist, they all combine together. Pretty much everything on my channel is cohesive, even though it might not seem at first glance to be. And I suggest watching all of those to keep you up to date as well. These reports I do at least 3 times a month, and I hope you guys are enjoying them and finding them informative. And if you are, please consider supporting me on Patreon because I have been demonetized, censored, and suppressed here on this channel. And with that being said, I will be sure to update you guys in another future upcoming video. And thank you so much for watching.